Hi, Jessica. How are you? Thank you so much for joining the Glow Up Social Girls. I'm so happy that you joined because we're going to have an amazing conversation.
I'm so glad to be here. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, sure. I think as I am, I know our listeners are just so eager to listen to your story. I know you used to be a nurse and then you transition into breath work, which I'm very intrigued to find out and know more about that. So let's just dive right in.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm Jessica. I have been a nurse for about 19 years. I was grew up in like the Western medicine side of things. My grandma was actually a CNA. She helped lots of elderly people in her home. Like she cared for a lady in her home. And I just always saw that and was really inspired by her. And so I ended up becoming a CNA and then I became a nurse. And I really felt like that was my passion. I was really great at it. I worked in the ICU primarily for my time in the hospital setting. And then about 2.5 years ago, actually back it up to it was probably a good 5 years ago, I started really getting burnt out, really getting overwhelmed, just feeling like I didn't want to be where I was at. I had switched into a different role, into a different department, and it just didn't feel like it lined up with who I was. And I struggled for a very long time. Like on the outside, it looked like I had everything. I'm married to my high school sweetheart. We have two kids, we have a dog, we have a beautiful home. It's like we have all these things checked, all the boxes. And living day in and day out, I just felt completely what I now call like misaligned. And when I say that,
Mm,
it's my soul, I really feel like was desiring something deeper. It knew like I'm here to do more than just day in and day out, go to work, punch the clock, come back home. But I didn't know that at the time. I knew like I just felt this desire for something else. I felt like something was missing and it made me feel bad because I had like society would say I had everything that you could
right.
want. And so it made me feel really guilty. It made me feel bad. I was like I need to make this work. I need to be happy. I need to be okay. And so I think that's where the disconnect started, and that's where I started feeling then the overwhelm and the burnout because I was trying so hard to be this person, to look good, and really inside my soul was dying. It was like you need something else. You are here for something more. And then COVID happened, and the stress of that on top of everything else, they had wanted us to get the vaccine. That is not something that I wanted to do. And so I remember like working on an exemption, writing this exemption, and something happened at work. I remember going and calling my husband like on my lunch break, just crying. And he's like, just leave. Like, what are you doing? And I really sat and thought about it that night. Like, I'm sitting here pouring my heart and soul into this job that I don't like, that I feel completely not aligned with. And I'm trying to write this exemption and fight for this job that I don't even want. And
Mm,
so it was a really, really hard decision, but probably the hardest decision I've had to make to date because I was making great money. I carried the insurance and the benefits. And so that was really hard to just be like, okay, what are we going to do now? How are we going to get it? My husband is self-employed. And so his job is very like you just don't always know if you're going to have. I mean, it's been very stable, but that whole like I had the stability of this job where I was getting paid from an employer. And so to leave that was a huge, huge thing. And so I did it. I took this big leap. I didn't have anything planned. I quit my job. And then it took me a few months really to figure out what I wanted to do. I found this program and I became a nurse coach, and through that have learned all sorts of different things. Like it really opened my eyes to life outside of the hospital, life outside of growing up, how I learned and how I grew up. And it really made me, I kind of almost went through this like what I would call maybe a dark night of the soul or a spiritual awakening or journey, because once I left my job, that was my identity. That's what who I was. Like if someone asks you who you are, what you do, like your first thing is usually your job. That's what we tell
right.
people. Like, oh, I'm a nurse. Like that's what I would just say. And so now I'm at this point where I'm not working in the hospital, and people would ask me questions, and I'd get like, I don't even know, what do I tell people? And it just gave me anxiety, and I didn't know what to do. And so I went through this spiral for a little bit of just like, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? How do I show up in the world? Like, who do I really want to be? And so my husband had said, like, this is your time to really find that. Like, figure out who you are. What do you want to do? And that made me scared because I had never in my life really been given the permission to just pick for myself, to just do what I wanted to do or become who I wanted to become. And so it left me very almost like paralyzed for a little bit. Like, I don't even know where to go, what to do. But I did find the coaching profession because of being called a nurse coach. I was like, okay, this still, I can use my nursing degree and I can still use my nursing license while becoming a coach. I have now since like kind of backed away from using my nursing title just because I do this deeper work with people that is outside of like a Western medicine model. So we really I work with women on unresolved trauma, on learning to find who they are inside themselves, because that's something that I struggled with. But I did find breath work in all of that. I had hired my own coach. She would open up our sessions with some breath work. And I found a studio near me was having a breathwork session. And so I went and I was like, oh man, this is what I need. This is my soul completely felt like this is what you need. And so I went back a month later. I did another session and I asked her, I'm like, how did you become this? How did you do this? I just felt this deeper calling to do this type of work. And so I went through the program. It was like a 6-month training, really in depth, like trauma informed, because when we do breath work, we can bring things up through the body because our body really is like a teacher and a tool. But a lot of times we're so stuck in our mind. We're so stuck in this,
Mhm.
like the constant noise chatter that's in our mind or the constant chatter of the world around us. So I think we've lost that connection with our body. And so I think I was really desiring that deeply, was to just really connect with myself and who I was. And so that was kind of like a long story of like how I got here, but
No, no, that's
yeah.
beautiful. And how beautiful it is that your husband was so supportive. It's so important. Kudos to him for being
Mhm.
extremely important, supportive. Like you said,
Mhm.
you were the one that had the secure job. Yes, he was self-employed. You were the one with the benefit. So for him to allow you to find yourself and to let go of that job and to find yourself, I think that's very important. Do
Mhm.
you think if the pandemic would have never happened, you would still be a
Mhm.
nurse?
That's a great question. I honestly don't know because I think that was the push that I
Right.
needed. I
Yeah.
think I was stuck and I think I knew prior to that I wanted to leave. Because at the time before the pandemic, he would just say, well, just go find another job, like go to the clinic or go to a different department
Right.
in the hospital. And I was like, no, I know that I'm not supposed to be here. I know I'm supposed to be somewhere else, but I just didn't know what else to do or where else to go. So truthfully, I don't know that I would have left. I
Right.
really think it was like a God thing where he was like pushing me, like, you're not going to move unless I move you, basically.
Yeah.
And while I didn't lose my job, it got to that point where I was like, I cannot do this anymore, like breaking down in my office crying, like, I don't want to do this anymore. So it was definitely the catalyst to bring me to where I am. I know that. So,
Yeah. And I think the pandemic, with all the craziness, I think it bring out a lot of positive things. I
mhm,
think
yeah.
people just kind of like woke up.
Mhm,
I know for me, it's a bit different, but I'm a tax accountant and I was used to going to the office every single day,
mhm,
commuting. And then when the pandemic happened, everyone's like working from home. Until
mhm,
this day, we still work from home. And in my mind, I'm like, I have no idea how I was doing that commute every single day for so
right.
many years. So I feel like it kind of made everyone just slow down and
Mhm,
appreciate life a little
yeah,
more.
yeah.
So that's just so beautiful how, that all just happened with you.
Mhm.
I love it.
Yeah, thank you. It wasn't easy. I usually tell people, I'm like, sometimes when I talk about it and make it sound like, oh, this was just so great and so easy, and it
Right.
wasn't. It was a hard decision. It took work to get where I am, but I know that, and like there's a phrase that I like to use because I was stuck in fear for a very long time. And so a
Mm,
phrase that I like to use is that there is freedom on the other side of fear, because
mm,
I didn't know where I was going to go, what I was going to do, what life would look like. I just knew I needed something different, and I was willing to be fearful and jump into the unknown, because I just knew there had to be something better. There had to be something different. Like I just knew there was something more for me. And so it has turned out on the other side of that or on the other side of that fear, there's been freedom. There's been this freedom to really create the life that I want, to create how I want to show up in the world, who I truly am, instead of what I feel like I had to be for everybody else. So
yeah.
it's been
Is there
beautiful.
anything that you miss about being a nurse and
Mm.
working in the hospital, or not at all?
I mean, I've had people ask me like, "Oh, would you ever go back?" I'm like, "Absolutely not.
Mm,
No, absolutely not." I think I miss being in person with people, and so that's a desire of my heart, is to do more things in person. I'm actually really looking for a space to be able to do, because everything I do right now is online. I coach and I do breath work mostly online. There's a yoga studio by me that I will go once a month to do breath work, and once a month to do an energetic practice that I do with people. So I will go there, but I'm desiring my own space to be able to see people even in coaching in person, and to do retreats. I've done a couple of retreats with some friends and their friends, and I just find such, like, I just know that's what I'm here for. I know I'm here to bring women together to create sisterhood, because I think there is this toxic sisterhood, and I've talked about this on other things that I've been on, but there's like this sisterhood wounding that I think a lot of us have with these feminine relationships that we have. And I think if we can come together in a positive way, in a way that is healing, there's
mhm.
so much, um, I guess just healing is the word, so much healing in that. And that's what I want to
Yeah.
bring to the world. And so that's the piece that I miss, is actually being with people, in person
Mhm.
with people, as opposed to just like we're doing on over the computer,
Right.
which it's great. It works as well. But I really love that like in-person connection.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's one of the many reasons why I started this podcast,
Mhm.
just the sisterhood and the community. And I just wanted to bring on guests and just to sit down like we're doing now and just to have these raw and real conversations. And I know everyone's journey is so different. And I know the listeners are going to relate one way or another. Like by you sharing this amazing story is so impactful because someone might be on the verge of thinking, should I quit my job? And just by listening to your story, that's what motivates me to keep on going with this podcast.
Yeah,
So thank you for sharing that. That
yeah.
was amazing. And along the way of your transition from nurse into this new practice, have you lost any friends, any family
Mm,
members? Because I know when we chatted at the beginning, I think we both mentioned we were both raised Christians. Well,
mhm,
I was a Catholic and then later on a Christian. I think you were raised a Christian.
mhm.
So along the way, did you lose any family or friends?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say lost in the sense that if I called them up that they wouldn't talk to me, but there's definitely been a distancing. And part of me feels like at one point I was a little bitter about it, and now I've like worked through that. But especially because I've had a mentor that really mentored me. So my husband and I had separated for about 2.5 years, well before I quit my job. And then, so during that time, she had mentored me. I had some friends that I was a little closer with at that time. And I don't really speak to any of them anymore. I think we
Mhm.
would, if I called them, we probably would be able to talk and things. But I think because I've gone down this path of, it's just different. It's different than what I was grown up with. It is
Yeah.
when we do breath work and when I'm doing, the other type of energetic practices that I'm doing, I feel deeply connected to them. And I feel like I connect with God on such a deep level when I do these practices, when I'm in breath work. But I think the way that I was raised was it's this is the way that it is. This is how you believe it. This is what you believe. And there's really no room for anything outside of that. And so what I tell people a lot of times is I was raised in this box, this societal box, like you have to look this way, you have to act this way, you have to be this way, whether it's, with church or with, work or with whatever it is. And I really didn't question things. I really didn't look outside the box. And then when I had left my job, then I was like, okay, what is all of this? What do I believe? Who am I? And so I questioned a lot of things. I even questioned God. Is there really even a God? Like, what is all of this?
Mhm.
And I think at that point in time, a lot of people got scared. A lot of people were like, oh my gosh, she is going off the deep end. Like, what is she doing? Who is she's
Yeah.
becoming this like crazy witchy person?
Yeah.
And so I really feel like, I mean, there were comments and things that I got, but ultimately I keep coming back. And there were times where I really felt hurt by that. I was like, they really have distanced themselves. And part of that could just be they don't see eye to eye with what I do. So we don't have as much in common to talk about anymore, which could be 100% all that it is. The other
Right.
part could be that they just don't want to associate with me because they're not comfortable with what I talk about and what I'm bringing to the world. But I know that I'm on this journey and that God has me here for a reason, and that everything that I've been doing is literally like doors have just been opening. And so I know that I'm on the right path because I clearly am saying, like, if I'm not supposed to be going this way, if I shouldn't be doing this, like, please completely close the door, allow me to go down a different path. But everything has just been this beautiful, like, I'm meeting these beautiful people, like, I would have never have met you. I wouldn't have met, like, a lot of these beautiful women that I am really close with now. And so I truly believe that we have our own paths and it's not going to make sense to everyone. And that's what I keep trying to tell myself. And I'm trying to raise my kids that way as well, is that everybody is not going to agree with you. Everybody is not going
Mhm.
to think what you are doing is the right thing because they don't know it or it's unfamiliar to them, and unfamiliar to our bodies feels scary. And so a
Yeah.
lot of times people will be like, no, that's scary. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to look at that. I don't want to think about that. And so I just want, I guess the point of this whole piece that I'm talking about is that everybody is on their own journey. And just because it's not for you doesn't mean that they're doing something wrong or that their journey isn't the right journey. Everybody has to do different things and go a different way. And, how I'm speaking things might be how what somebody needs in the world. And so I just feel like being your true authentic self is really what we are here to be, what we're here to show up as. It's not trying to be what this person told you to be and showing up like maybe your parent or your spouse wants you to be or your partner or your friend. It's really truly finding yourself and who you are and becoming the best at that, because we are all individually made to be here with our own gifts and our own unique expression. And that's not going to be, yours and mine are going to be completely different. But that doesn't
Yeah.
mean I can be here judging you like, oh, I don't think you should do it that way, because it's your way. It's what you feel is best because that's what God is giving you to do. And
Yeah.
so,
I always like to say, I want to get, I want to arrive to heaven empty handed, meaning I want to use all my talents and all my gifts and dreams and vision here on earth. So when
mm,
I arrive to heaven, it's almost like I want to arrive with nothing because I used it all here on earth.
that's
I
beautiful.
always like to remind myself.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you say that because when you remove the fear and you become in alignment with yourself, it's almost like you kind of shut off all that noise and you
Mm-hmm.
don't and the judgment around you, it's like, okay, whatever. because you're not listening, you're not living in fear. I
Mm-hmm.
had something similar happen to me where this year I'm like, okay, I'm going to deep dive and really do a lot of internal healing. And that to me looks like doing human design, breath work, and it's doing all these things that I'm unfamiliar with, that I'm learning it now as I'm, deep diving into it. And at first there was this fear, like, should I be doing this? Is
Right.
this correct?
Mm-hmm.
Because, I became a Christian, and then all these fears are put on you. Like, you shouldn't look into this, or you shouldn't do that. That's from the devil. Like,
Right.
don't do that. So when I removed all that fear, I was like, I'm just going to remove it. This is my year. I'm doing my internal healing. And for me, like you said, it's going to look different than the person next to me.
Yep.
So it's just a beautiful thing when we become in alignment with ourselves.
Mm-hmm. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what else can we look forward to for you? What
Mm.
are in plans for the future?
So, well, having my own in-person space, that is on my heart right now. I also want to do more retreats. So I've done retreats with, like, I've had a couple friends reach out and say, "Hey, can you come to like a girls' weekend and do breath work and, guide us through some sessions and things like that." So I've done that. It fills my soul. I just love it. And so I want to do retreats. I would love to do destination retreats, I think is something that I would really love to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have you ever been to a retreat? That's like one of my dreams, to
Mm-hmm.
attend one,
Yeah.
and then in the long run to host one. So
Mm.
I'll definitely keep you in mind.
Yes. So my plan is 2025 is going to be my year of having a retreat. I have a couple friends because I would like to have someone to co-partner with. I
Yes.
have a couple friends that we've been in talks about doing it. So that's definitely coming in 2025. I don't exactly know where yet. I have a couple places in mind. I've been to Costa Rica. It was like one of my all-time favorite places that I've traveled. I've traveled lots of places. And so I think I would like to do it there. Obviously
Mhm.
there's the logistics of, like, how do you get all the things that you need? If I would just do one in my hometown, I could have all my stuff, but when you
Right.
travel abroad, it's, a lot differently. So those are all the little things that I have to work out. But yeah, so having retreats is, like, definitely on my heart. Right now, I do mostly everything, like I said, online. So I do breathwork sessions. I do somatic based healing sessions, which is really feeling into the body. So soma means body.
Mhm.
We really get to, like, maybe the core of why there's something that you constantly have, like a same pattern or a same um, like emotions, or maybe there's like a pain inside your body. And so we really try to go into the body, like a body based healing, to try to get to the root of that. And so a lot of the work that I do is really trying to get to the root of what is going on in your body or in your life, or why you keep having things that keep happening, like these soul patterns that we keep doing. And so breath work, somatic healing, and then I also have a group program. I'm doing this quarterly. It is like a sisterhood connection where we meet together in a group for about 3 months, and we really work together on our healing. On I do an energetic call once a month, and then we do breath work twice a month, and then we meet weekly in a group and we go through our wins, our fears, our just life. And I do little talks, and then we do some coaching, and it's just such a beautiful space. Like, I've been mentored in spaces like this as well, and I just
Mhm.
feel like everyone that I've been in, I'm still in connection with at least one of the women in that space. And I just feel like that
That's
connection,
awesome.
it's just beautiful to create that. So that sisterhood connection. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Awesome. Do you feel now that you have more time, that you left that the
Mm,
nursing and are doing that? Do you feel like you have more time on your hands?
I feel like I have more. time and space, like the first little bit. So I've been out of the nursing field for about 2.5 years. So I would say the first little while, figuring out what I was doing, being on my healing journey, and then really trying to establish my business, like get it up and running. And so a lot of it has been a little more hustle than I would have liked, I think, just to try to get it going and to try to get clients and to try to get your name out there, because people don't know who you are and what you do unless you are promoting
Right.
yourself, unless you're like getting out there. So I feel like that has taken up a lot of my time, but it's also given me the freedom to, like, we have a place in Gulf Shores, Alabama, so I can take my computer and I can literally work while we are on vacation if I want to. Like, so
Yeah.
last year we took, I mean, we were only ever able to do a vacation maybe once a year or every other year. And now, like last year, we went on three different ones. And I brought my computer with and was able to work a couple days while we were on vacation because I just can. And but it's some people are like, well, you shouldn't be working on vacation. I'm like, well, these are extra vacations we're taking, and I have the ability and I love what I'm
Right.
doing. And so it doesn't necessarily feel like a lot of work. Like it just feels like my passion, and so bringing it to do while I'm in a different place feels still like freedom. So I
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
like there's this nice separation. Yeah.
I was just gonna say it probably doesn't feel like you're working now because
Mhm.
it's your passion and you can just see the drive in you and like the spark when you talk about it. So I can just imagine the joy. So when you do go on vacation and you are, quote unquote working, I'm
Mhm.
sure it doesn't bother you as
Right.
if you were on vacation and you had to answer like a call because someone's sick or something.
Yeah.
That would probably annoy you versus what you're
Mhm.
doing now.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Mhm.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that freedom to be with, because I have two teenagers, and so the freedom to be with them has been great. Especially, so my daughter just turned 18; she just graduated, and to have that freedom to be with them, to drive a little bit more, because my son still needs, to be carted around because he doesn't drive yet. And so to be able to go here and go there in the middle of the day, if he wants to go do something, especially in the summer with a friend, like I have that ability to go. I
Yeah.
have that ability to work around schedules, to plan things with them, to, if my husband takes off a day, we could just have a day date. Like it makes just that freedom to be able to choose when and what I do and how I do it, I think is just, I think the most beautiful thing out of all of it. Like I love having the clients, I love having my work days, but I love also having the days where I can just rest, and where that used to feel so, like if I took a day off when I worked in the hospital, I was like, my day off was filled with, okay, I got to go grocery shopping. I have to do this.
Yeah.
I have to, get XYZ. And like that whole day almost felt more exhausting than a work day. Where now I'm like, okay, I can go to the grocery store during the day when there's nobody around and I can go and do
Yeah.
this, and I can do this day, and I can do this day. Like there's just so much more freedom and fluidity where it just doesn't feel so rigid and strict, and because I just get to choose. And I think that's the most beautiful thing of it all, is that I get to choose when and what I do and how I do it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. You hear my dog in the background.
Oh, I didn't hear that. No, you're all good.
That's awesome. I have one last question where you're going to spill the tea. And it's a question I'm going to ask you, and you're just going to tell us all the inside scoop. So I have my notes here. So, who or what inspires you the most on a daily basis?
Hmm. So I feel like on a daily basis it would be my husband. So
Mm,
he started doing this work of really finding himself while we were separated. And he really has been on this journey of growth and of expansion and of learning just different things. And so I feel like I kind of started on this path of really figuring myself out because he was already on this path of figuring himself out and just having this freedom to choose and to be who you want to be and not feel like you have to be I don't want to say tied down because that's not the right word, but restricted by what you feel like everybody else wants you to be and wants you to show up as and all of that. And so he is the person that I turn to when I'm like, okay, I'm thinking of doing this in my business, or this is what's happening right now. And he is always bringing me back to, well, what do you want to do? Not what does this person, what do you think they want you to do? Or what do you think, how do you think you should show up for them? Like, how do you want to show up? What do you want to do? And so the answers that he always gives me aren't exactly what I want all the time. So I'm like, no, I just want you to tell me what to do sometimes.
Yeah,
And
that's how it always
yeah,
is, right?
he will like throw
It's
it
like, just
back.
give me an answer.
Yes. But he'll throw it back in a way where he allows me to make that choice in my for myself, which is that empowerment. Where it's like, no, you're right. I need to make this choice myself. I need to do this and I need that authority in my life because this is my business. It's not his business. And this is my life for myself. This is not his life. And so that that reminder that I come back to, that he brings me back to, which I think is sometimes really hard as a spouse, especially when you've been with someone for so long, because we've been together. I mean, I was literally 15 when I started dating him. And so besides those 2.5 years where we were separated, we were still to like not really together, but we still talked all the time. We had 2 kids. And
Right.
so having this, this person who has grown up with me, but basically is, because I think sometimes we become so codependent on our spouse, our partner. And so having that spaciousness to say, no, I really am my own person. I am my own authority. I need to make these decisions. Like, yes, I will think about you while I'm making them, making the best decision for my family. But ultimately, I have to make that decision for myself. And so he is such a hard worker also. Like he has built the business that he has and he has done such a tremendous job. And so yeah, I would say he is someone that inspires me daily.
That's awesome. That's
Mhm.
so good to hear. I mean, from the very beginning, I think he's such a supportive husband, and
Mhm.
that's so key in a relationship. And I
Yeah.
feel like you would have never stepped out of your nursing career into this if it wasn't for his support. I know a lot of other factors played into it,
Mhm.
but I think he was one of the key factors.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's awesome to
Absolutely.
hear.
Yeah.
So did
And
he start his journey first? Because I know you
mhm.
mentioned he started his like healing journey first and
Mhm.
then you did.
Yeah, actually we were separated when he started his. And so I think as hard as that was, that season in my life was one of the hardest seasons that I have ever had to go through. And I even had someone ask me, like, would you do it again? Like, if you knew this is where you would be, like, would you do it again? And I 100% would do it again. Even though it was so hard, it brought us to this place where, and not everybody goes through this, not everybody has this hard season and then they come out on the other side. And so I just want to say that it is hard. It's hard work. It was hard getting back together because we had lived separately for that 2.5 years. So it was hard moving back in together. Actually, that
Right.
first year was really rough. Like we almost separated again because we had now become these two people who were different. He was on his journey of learning who he was, of going through his healing, and he was just different and I wasn't there yet. And so you know, I was fearful of where he was going and I thought you like, oh my gosh, he is like at one point I was like, is he, worshiping the devil and like, like just crazy things like that, where I wasn't sure. And once I opened myself up to be like, okay, God brought us back together. Like he wouldn't have brought us back together if this wasn't the direction that I needed to go. If I didn't need to wake up and learn and open my eyes to what else is out there. And so, yeah, he really did. He started this journey by, a thing that happened to him when we were separated, and that's his own story to share. But he yeah, just started this journey, and he's been really into just like reading books and learning and knowledge and all of these things. And so yeah, I've just been, he kind of calls it his train. He's like, if you want to jump on the train, like jump on the train. Like I'm going this way. Like I'm going up. Like I am making an, I don't want to say a name for myself because he doesn't say that necessarily, but it's like he's on this path that he's like, I know this is who I am. I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And if people don't agree with it, that's just, that's okay. Where I had come from this place that I was like, people pleaser 100%, you know, so I
Yeah.
was like, but no, you're going to upset this person, and that person might not like that. And now I've gotten to this point where it's like, you're right, we are our own people, we are in charge of our own lives, and there's nobody else can dictate what we do. And I can't let the fear of what my parents think because I'm doing this, or what my friends that, you know, I used to be really close with think. Like we really just have to do this for ourselves because we're not answering to anyone. And at the end of the
Right.
day, we are the only people who at night come back to each other. So it's like that relationship is the most important to me because, you know, we are in this relationship for life, for growing together. And yes, like my kids, I would say, you know, are my number 2 and 3, or just number 2 together, I would say, because they
Yeah.
absolutely inspire me, and they are the reason why we are doing what we are doing as well, to break all these generational, you know, like we just have these cycles that we go through. And if you look back into your life and how your parents, you know, and like these cycles between our generations, it's like I want, and everybody wants better for your kids, like everybody
Right.
does,
Yeah.
you know. And so
Yeah. And those cycles are very hard to unlearn.
100%.
It's yeah, it's such a process. I remember when I was going through my divorce about 10, 11 years ago, my biggest fear, as silly as it sounds now, is what are people going to think of me? And
Mm-hmm.
people, I mean like my family members.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh my, like it took me, it's kind of sad to kind of say, but it took me a while to come to the place of I want a divorce. It took me so long to say that and to actually take action because I was too busy thinking of my family members. Like, what are they going to think
Mm-hmm.
once I break the news, once they learn that Cynthia is getting a divorce? So it took me probably 3, 4 years to speak up and say, I don't want to be in this marriage anymore because of my family members, which is like so silly now that I'm healed. And, you know, it was years ago. And I look back and I'm like, that was so stupid for me to even think
But you're
that
not the
someone
only
else.
one. You're not.
Right. Yeah.
Millions of
Yeah.
people that do that. We live in fear of our family. We live in fear of the people that are closest to us. Like, what are they going to think?
Right. Yeah. And to unlearn that,
Hmm.
it's so hard. And like you said, it's just like this generational thing that just goes on and on. And if you don't stop it and break it, then you're just going to continue it and pass it on to your kids,
Hmm.
which is why I decided to break that marriage because I was so unhappy. And then I saw my parents, the way they were in their marriage, and they were so unhappy, but they stood together because of me and my brother. Or that's just what I assume. And from, you know, the information that I gather as a child. And I remember always thinking if they would have just got divorced and, you know, went about their lives, how much happier they individually would have been.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what made me speak up and say, no, like I have to put a stop. I have to put a stop and kind of like break this generational curse of just hiding behind, you know, these fears.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's just very interesting unlearning these things. It's very hard.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah. But thank you so much. I don't know if
Mhm.
you want to say any last words of wisdom. I think your journey is so beautiful. I just can't wait to continue seeing you grow. I'm excited for your retreats you have to keep me up to date because I would love to join. And I'm sure our listeners as well. And of course, I'll include everything in the show notes.
Mhm.
But if you want to say any last words and where everyone can find you on your socials.
Yeah. So I'm at just my name, so Jessica, and then there's a dot in between, Jessica.Jante on most platforms. I'm on most of them. I don't really use like TikTok and Pinterest and stuff very often, but I'm on there. I have a website also. It's www.jessicajante.com. That's where I have a free meditation on there, guided meditation, if you're interested in that. And then it's just how to work with me and different things like that. And then I guess my last parting words would be just going along with that fear piece is that knowing that on the other side of fear is freedom, like I said before, and it can be so scary to leave. It can be scary to leave a job. It can be scary to leave a spouse. It can be scary to, whatever it is that is on your heart. But if you are listening and you are stuck in this place of fear and you know that you are made for more, you know that there's something else out there for you, just following that nudge, just knowing, like getting quiet with yourself. And I know that's hard to do if you've never done it before. And so if you want support, like absolutely just reach out to me, but just knowing that you can find this inside yourself, that we all have the capability to do this. We all have the capability to learn who we are, to learn what we need to be the best version of ourselves. And so it's really getting quiet with yourself and really it's having hard conversations with yourself. Like what do I really need and how do I really want to show up in the world? And
Mm.
knowing that you can do that by yourself, but knowing that you also have support if you want to reach out. And yeah, I don't want anybody to be living in this place of just feeling stuck. If you're in this place where you're like, I've been stuck for years, I know how that feels. I know how soul draining it is. And so I just
Yeah.
want you to know that there's hope and there is something. I mean, just you yourself are your own most beautiful resource. So just knowing that you have it inside of you.
Yeah. And there's community as well.
Mhm.
So you
Yes.
can always reach out
Mhm.
and, ask for that support if you're not finding it at home or with family. There's definitely community out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Jessica, thank you so much for joining the Glow Up Social Girls. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me so much. I really love sharing. I love hearing from other people. So this is beautiful. I love the podcast that you're creating. I think it's just great. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Mm,
Bye.
bye.